Welcome to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. This is Will Crozier.
And I'm Mikki Westcombe. We are the founders of Nexus Performance. Joining us on this wild ride is our heavyweight coaching team, ready to unleash their expertise to solve any problems in your journey to getting strong and jacked.
Through our real-world experience, we hope to break things down in a digestible, applicable, and entertaining way.
So pump up the volume and let's get into this. Hey Bowser. We are joined today by a rascal who's killing his toy.
Is it a porcupine?
We call it as hedgehog, but I really don't know.
They're the same. I think a porcupine is like the American way, right?
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if you're using the wrong
porcupine.
All right. Hi.
Hello. Is this on?
We're recording.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
cool.
We're in.
Has it been a
that
morning?
Only took me half an hour to set up that fucking camera.
It's okay. I watched and ate an apple.
The apple's kicking in now.
Yeah.
We're good. Hello, listeners.
The apple's kicking in.
Reality. Life with Jordan. Hello, listeners. Different voices on today. We are taken over from the boys.
Yep.
After a few of the Spotify playlists were shared, I asked people what they want to listen to, and a lot of people requested yourself and I.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they said the girls are sick.
I love that.
Fully
for us.
sick.
Yes.
So we're taking over.
Awesome.
And there'll be many more of us coming out as well. So let me pull up my little podcast planner here as well.
We've got lots of notes today. This is a good one.
Yeah, big episode. I like these episodes. And even like before coming in here, obviously you and I were talking about like bulking and that. I'm like, fuck, let's do like just a full episode on that.
I think it's that'd be a very in-depth.
It's just different perspectives on it, right? Like Will and I were talking about it even, as you and I were sending messages. And it's like obviously you mentioned you'll take a slightly more conservative approach where I'd be like a little bit more aggressive with it, but it really comes down to the individual anyways. And
it's like much of a muchness.
Exactly. It's like there's what the science tells us, the reality of that science, and then also making it work for each unique person.
Yeah.
So
and using data to inform our decisions.
Yes, 100%. So yeah, we'll get into like episodes like that coming forward as well. But let me pull up our notes here. So what's the first couple of things we have on today's agenda?
So
what's on? Let's start off with the ebook.
Yes. So I was lying by the pool and I was trying to switch off. And I just had this.
You're not good at that, are you?
No, because clearly I had this amazing idea, and it was about talking about nutrition and your off season and things that we can work on during that time.
Yep.
Because like you and I both had this discussion. I don't know if it was like off the back of me telling you about this idea, but a lot of the time people come to us like they're like, oh, I'm in comp prep. Like, what do I got to do? Like, focus on all these things, which is great.
Yeah.
Like, we love people being serious about their health. But I'm like, well, you could do these things like in your off season too. And like personally, I love having a really long off season, and I love like working on all these different elements because then it just makes comp prep so much easier.
Yeah, for sure.
So this ebook is all about like how, like nutrition for your off season, and then I guess looking at obviously like moving up and down or weight classes, maximizing your performance in your current weight class, data and metrics, like what we can track and how can we use
what you should be doing in the off season.
Yes.
Something we've talked about in different ways, gone about in roundabout ways, or things that like I know I've done like a little YouTube thing on it, which I sent you when we were originally talking about this ebook as well, just to prompt some different ideas, different perspectives, and that was like more about like hypertrophy and that component of it. But I definitely think creating a large resource. How big has this ebook come out as so far?
So I did a word count because I was on a roll and I was like over 5,000 words. So
she's a beaut.
Yeah, putting it into Canva, it's like over 40 pages. But it goes into things like your mindset, like you were talking about, like setting goals and then then like depending on this, like your goals and how like the standards that you want to reach, like how then do you like take your nutrition, because
Yeah.
some people might not want to take it so seriously.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There's like overcoming the complacency factor,
yeah,
laziness, and then people on the other end of the spectrum with that as well that are like overly rigid and stiff throughout
Yeah.
their off season. And you know, like I obviously used yourself as an example there through your last off season. Like you're like, I want to, you know, cross every T and dot
Yeah.
every I and
Yeah.
take this as seriously as I possibly can.
Yeah.
But I still feel like you had, I mean, obviously, I feel like you had a little bit more of a logical perspective, and you weren't getting overly emotional with certain things. You still went out and had a lot of social events and lived life and holidays or weekend
Yeah.
off or that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
But like majority of the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm not going to like, I refuse to like cry over things in the gym. Like I'm not going to beat myself up if I miss a lift, all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. But
I'm
like
not going to cry over spilt milk.
no, because I'm like, it's just powerlifting.
Yeah.
But like, you know, when we went to Bali, I made sure that I still trained. I took all my like sleeves and belt, like, because I like that stuff. Like
Yeah.
I like doing it. Like it was kind of coming from joy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I work from home. I can,
Yeah.
you know, put extra attention into these things because I
You
don't
have that freedom
yeah, I
and
don't
flexibility.
have kids. I don't have
Yeah.
a lot of stresses. So
Yeah.
why not?
Different stresses.
Yeah, true. I
Yeah.
don't have like the stresses of like, you know, chasing after kids and like
Yeah.
doing stuff on weekends with them. Like I can be more like what's the word? Selfish with my time in that way.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll have that ebook coming out in future weeks.
Yes.
Depending on how we go with this first draft. Obviously we've gone over the written copy. You're in the design phase of it now,
mode.
the creative space. And then we'll go over that in the next week as well and proof it and hopefully get that out before Christmas.
Yes.
So for listeners out there that like what they heard so far, just a little drop, we'll be releasing a chapter of that for free for people to have a bit of a look into it. And if it's something that they're wanting to invest more time and energy into, then that's going to lead us into our next segue here, which is the nutrition course that we have. So we ran this at the start of this year, start of 2023 in February. We will be releasing it once again in February. So that is a 5-week course, and this ebook is going to be within that as one of the resources. Obviously, we have a lot of different resources from comp day plans, from before comp day to leading into comp, the whole prep. Then the nutrition course itself is getting a bit of a facelift as well. We've had pretty good curriculum laid out there, so we're just going to be going through that and giving that a nice little facelift, updating some of the things that we've potentially changed our mind on, or offering different insight or different perspective to the content that's in there at the moment. So that'll be coming out in Feb. Jordan's presenting in it.
It went really well this year. We had like really good engagement.
Yeah, we had like over 30 people throughout, so it was a really good course. It's also, it was great because a lot of the people that invested in it, though they didn't attend all the live lectures, it's really easy to go back and rewatch and be able to. So for those that invested in it in this last year, you will still have access to that. So you can go back and rewatch any of the live recordings or anything like that, and all the pre-recorded content as well. I think it was just really easy to follow along, and it was super applicable.
Yeah, everything is super, like, as you said, applicable, I'm just repeating you. But like I've seen a lot of people who did the course who are maybe starting their career now actually
like fully into it,
into like being a nutrition coach, and they're still drawing on stuff that was in that course too, which is 100%. So cool.
Yeah, there's been two girls in particular that did that course originally, that and Ella is one
She
of
was
which.
one I was thinking of. Yeah.
So she's obviously I helped her out with some business advice before she jumped into being a coach now, so she's obviously coaching. And then there's another lady from New South Wales. Emma is another that I know has just started investing time and energy into her own business, and she is doing really, really well down in New South Wales, helping a lot of the guys and gals down there. So shout out to her as well. Obviously 2 ladies, and there's a multitude of other people in there that are either now introducing themselves into coaching, or if they're in the position of just being an athlete, wanting to take their nutrition a little bit more seriously. Sorry.
Bowser nearly just ripped my headset off and flung me forward.
Yeah, so those are
a few people that jump out that, yeah, we've
100%.
seen apply a lot of the stuff that we spoke
100%.
about.
Yeah. And the course itself, like, obviously, we both have really enjoyed presenting within it as well.
Yep.
It's, as we said, primarily application based, great for coaches, but as an athlete, even,
Yeah,
you know, like
there's
a lot of people,
takeaways.
a lot of takeaway things that, like, I can understand for a lot of people, like investing in
my footrest.
investing in nutrition coaching, like long-term, full-time. It can obviously, in this financial situation, can be quite difficult for some people. So investing in a course where they can learn everything they need to know to be able to apply and take their training a little bit more seriously, that's where
there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, that's the gap we're trying to fill a little bit for people as well. Yeah. So giving them education, insight, and then also helping them, Bowser, what have you done? And then also helping them you know, be able to do it themselves, essentially. Yeah. And that kind of leads us quite nicely into today's episode.
Segue.
Right. Oh, we should probably actually just quickly do a recap on the Nexus games as well. That's the other thing
that thing.
Ruined my segue. God damn it.
What a day that was, though.
Yeah. I'm still burnt, hey, like my back.
I came in and benched the day after and like just setting up, I was like, that burns.
Yes.
It hurt. Nice. But like, look, I'm going to be honest. So like, I didn't really have a lot to do with the setup of it. So I was
thrown in the deep end.
I had my doubts. I was like, what's going to happen on this day? Like a lot of people are just going to rock up. Like I know it's just like, have fun, make it up as we go. But it actually came together.
There was some
really
structure to it. There was structure to it.
Or maybe I was just in the dark.
Yeah, you were in the dark on a lot of it. You were essentially like, Jordan, be the hype and the gusto that we need. You're like, I don't know what's going on with any of this.
What is strongman?
But that's the beauty, was that like you could just be like, yes, let's go.
Toss the sandbag.
Almost to your own detriment at one point there, cheering on poor Honza even though he blacked out.
So I'm actually still really embarrassed about this. So
I'm going to give this clip to Tam to overlay in this moment right now as well. So everyone knows.
Like, honestly, like even on the way home and like yesterday, I just like think back to this moment and be like, what the fuck are you doing? So Honza pulled like a 500 kilo, what is it called? A silver dollar deadlift.
Yeah.
And he like locks out and like we're all clapping. I'm on the mic cheering. And then
you're like, yes!
He slowly passes out and he's got his straps on. So he's stuck to the deadlift bar and almost pretty much face plants.
Will catches him.
Yeah.
And we did have spotters.
I'm in the background, like still cheering, but then my hands aren't actually making contact with each other. And I'm awkwardly like half clapping while also kind of like, oh, fuck. He passed out.
Yeah. Well, he's not with it right now.
No,
Jordan.
He's not celebrating with me right now. And it's just me here awkwardly.
Apparently, like I saw, because I didn't approach him straight away either. Because there was like 4 guys there helping him out. I'm like, yeah, they got this. Yeah. But yeah, apparently as soon as he came to, the first thing he said is, go get me
a beer. He's got style.
And then he goes, did I actually get it? Classic Honza.
What about you? Because you competed too.
I did. Yeah, I did. I wore multiple hats that day.
You did all of the things.
I did all of the things. I just can't help myself. And because I didn't take it like overly seriously either, like obviously some of the events I hadn't even done. Some of the other ones, I just YOLO'd. Like I decided when I was in America, I was like, oh, maybe I'll come back and I'll just do that.
Yeah.
So in America, I trained 4 times.
Solid.
In 5 weeks. So like on average, once a week. Bowser, sit. Good boy.
He's so big.
This is now the Bowser show. There we go. He'll go to sleep on you, no doubt. Okay. Might fight a little bit, but give you a bit of pink eye in the process. Sorry. Where was I? Yeah, so I was just like, oh, I'll get back and I'll go back into the Nexus games and just give myself something to work towards.
Yeah.
To try and re-spark some training motivation and stuff. So yeah, so that's been that it was fun. That's honestly the only reason why I did it.
Yeah.
Like I just wanted to get back into something, have some fun, throw some shit around,
Yeah.
flip some tires,
Yeah.
like, and as a result of that, we are now doing like conditioning classes on a Saturday
I saw
morning
that.
here.
So what does that entail?
So like whilst we were away, Will kept saying I need to work on my conditioning, I need to do some conditioning.
Yeah.
And like we're talking about maybe just trying to find a hobby or something that he can do. And boxing was thrown around, like bike riding, all these different things were sort of thrown around, and nothing really kind of stuck.
Yep.
And I think after the games and after seeing just like how fun it was for everyone else, Will's just like, well, fuck it, why don't we do kind of like a spin-off that, and just offer it as an ongoing sort of class, mainly to keep him accountable, to doing the conditioning stuff. Kiva's been wanting to do some group training on a Saturday morning and get some skills up in that department. And like I just enjoy it. Like a lot of people are really enjoying that style of training where they can lift some things, throw some things, do some runs, like just really mix it up a little bit.
All-round
and
fitness.
all around fitness, like is essentially a strength and conditioning class. So still incorporating strength-based stuff in it, whilst including, you know, getting your fucking heart rate up and really
battle ropes.
Battle ropes is one thing that Will was adamant he didn't want to do, but it would be like bring out the assault bike and do some assault stuff, do some tire drags, do some flips, do some med ball throws. So like Will busted both of the med balls underneath our house yesterday, throwing them into the wall. He busted both of them, but he's like, they were just old and needed replacing.
They
anyways.
deserved it.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's what we'll have for between 8:30 and 9 on Saturday mornings now. And it was just really sparked from the games. And we'll just see where things go. So we'll only have it like this weekend and next weekend, before Christmas, and then we'll come back and we'll probably spark things back up again after Christmas. So yeah, it should be fun, should be interesting, and
I'm
Any
keen.
more questions?
Yeah.
Would you do it this weekend?
I think we're going to go to Byron, but if we can do it beforehand, I love conditioning stuff. Like,
Will's like, you'll run rings around us. So, 8:30 till 9 is when we'll do it. So maybe not this weekend, but we'll see. Maybe in the new year.
If it's in the new year, I'll
it'll be an ongoing thing because Will wants to keep it up. So topic for today is getting started with nutrition. How do you want to kick us off there?
How do we start? Are we framing, like, what's the context? So is this kind of maybe from our perspective when someone comes on board and says a complete newbie to nutrition?
There was kind of two different avenues with this. The first avenue that I want to take is that perspective of like someone gets in contact with us and we're going to talk through the process of us helping them getting started with the nutrition. And I feel like that will seamlessly flow into like people listening to this now and being like, oh, I can implement all of these things myself and actually take care of my nutrition myself. So because of the timing of this episode being released Friday the 15th of December, I know that a lot of people out there are like, they're not super keen on getting started with their nutrition from a coaching perspective right now. So hopefully we can give them some takeaways to start to apply, reflect, review on what they want to be doing over the next couple of weeks. And then coming into the new year, if they're like, hey, look, I've done these things over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And then maybe we can help kind of like
kick off, like, you know, like, I'm feeling really good, I'm doing these, what else can I do?
Exactly. So kind of multiple avenues that we can take with this chat today.
Okay, well,
the first notes that we have here, and you've written it, is like, we don't know what we don't know.
That's it. So like sometimes you have people come on board and it's quite, you know, you don't want to assume knowledge, you know, you don't want to assume people know what certain things are. So it's kind of about asking questions to kind of really understand, you know, where that person's coming from, meeting them where they're at, and maybe figuring out, like, what is it that you want to work on? Like, are there any things that you know you want to do? Because I feel like me telling someone, this is what we're doing. Like,
Yeah.
nah.
Yeah, it's not a dictatorship.
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
But you've mentioned here as well, like, we don't want to overcomplicate it. Now, there
No.
are some people that I've worked with over the years that are literally just like, I don't really care about understanding the depths of nutrition.
Tell me what to eat and I'll do it.
Yeah, like, they're very much like, tell me what I can be doing differently or better. Tell me what I need to change, how I can go about changing that. And they learn through that process, but they're not overly invested in understanding all the literature and the sciences and stuff like that. And I feel like it's our job as coaches to know the science and then break it down and make it applicable for them.
Yeah, communicate it in a way that's relatable and digestible to the individual.
Absolutely. At their level.
Yeah. And I guess sometimes, you know, people might say that, and then maybe as you go, they want to start learning. And that's when I always ask, like, all right, like, is there anything else you want to, like,
how far do you want to go with this?
Yeah. And that's kind of how I do that.
And that kind of goes along with the process as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, when someone is getting started, like, I'm not like, this is what calories are and this is what macros are and TDEE. Like, I don't get into that shit with a lot of my clients initially because, and we'll get into it today, like, the science of that sort of stuff is definitely important, but you just wean it through the process and you're like, hey, look, we're addressing these things and this is kind of why, and this is how that works.
Yeah.
But let's go back to just focusing on like these couple of core things first as well. So like you said, there's layers that you kind of have to go through, and that usually takes a few months and
takes a while, like
sometimes years. Yeah.
And I know like a lot of coaches have like minimum terms, but I firmly believe that you can't really, like, 12 weeks isn't a long time to go through a lot of this stuff. Like, months and months and months.
It's stuff that, you know, has been for us established over years. And depending on the history, like where this person is, where this client or where you're starting at, what underlying sort of experiences or history that they may have, like that can be sped up, or it can be a really drawn out slow process because there's a lot of other things that we need to address first.
And the biggest thing too that I've got one client in mind that I can think of when I say this, as well as that some people don't really know how to cook. And like, you can't assume that someone knows like how to you know, put together a meal, let alone cook a meal that they actually like.
I remember like Will telling me when he was in the Navy and he moved out of base for the first time and he was living in a house. He called his mum and he was like, how do I make steak? Like, this is like a 25-year-old man. Man-child. That is finally having to make his own food. And, like, he called his mum and he's like, how do I cook a steak? Like, I remember my sister.
Steak cooking, like, is it ready?
I remember my sister didn't know how to make rice. I
mean, getting the water ratio is difficult in those initial 100%. Stages.
And I think this was back when, like, rice cookers weren't really a thing and everyone cooked rice in a pot.
I don't know how to cook rice in a pot.
You don't?
Well, I mean, like, I think I can do it.
It's
but
kind of the same way.
I just use a rice cooker.
It's kind of the same thing.
Oh, no.
But yes, rice cookers do make life. The world now makes life so much easier for everyone to follow through. But it also can make life very, very difficult for some people because falling into poor habits and stuff like that is also just as easy as creating
Eats at a button. You know, do I put together this meal or do I just order something?
Creating good habits is just as easy. It was just like creating good habits is just as easy as creating bad habits. That's for sure.
Which
so, I guess be considerate of that.
Exactly. Which then also comes into the next question that we had is like, I guess, like, are they motivated to change? So obviously we've identified like they want to start something new and they know something has to change. But sometimes I guess people can tell you things, but you know, if they're willing to do it, that's a different.
100%. Like we've got here, like, why do you want to change now? For listeners out there, I want to ask. I want you guys to ask yourself these series of questions as we're going through it. Why are you wanting to make a change now? Like, what is your motivation to make change, and why now? Like, why not 6 months ago? What in your life has put you in this position now? You know?
Like,
and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like, wanting to make change is great. Fucking go for it.
Don't shame anyone. Be like, oh, it's New Year's now. You want to make a change? Like, nah.
No, it's just the time of the year and
Yeah.
what's transpired, or maybe you've just found powerlifting for the first time, and this is the first time that you're like, hey, I actually want to look at nutrition from a performance
I
perspective.
want to get better. Yeah. And I know
like,
there are things that I need to do to improve,
Mhm.
but like I don't know where to start.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
like I've been training really hard for a little while now, and I know
Mm.
that there's some eating habits that I can be improving on,
Mhm.
or, I've had a massive career change, I've had a lifestyle change. It
Yep.
could be good or bad, right?
Yeah.
So like sometimes it's just like I just feel like shit, and I'm just sick of
Sick of
feeling
it.
like groggy and gross and bloated and whatever.
Yep.
And I don't want to feel this way anymore. Like it
Yep.
can be something as simple as that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my first question: is why do you want to make a change now? And then how motivated are they to make that change? Right, like depending on the severity of which they want to go down.
Yep.
There could be certain sacrifices that people may not be willing to make right now, and that's fine. So you just kind of got to meet them where they're at, right?
Meet them where they're at, understand like why they want to change, and
Mhm.
then figure out, are they capable of making the change, or do I need to like help them
Yeah.
with tools to then be able to do it?
Yeah, 100%. Well, one of the conversations that I had, and this, like, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit here as well,
Yeah.
but a conversation after a reel that I actually posted yesterday, a girl slid into my DMs and was talking to me about how sadly her coach essentially neglected her goals and said, like, you should love your body where you're at right now, and not want to make change. Like, you should work on your mindset before you work on trying to make physical change. And to me that was obviously very disappointing that her
The person
goals
she's paying to help.
have essentially been disregarded, right? Or like broken down in a sense that, like, there's something else kind of going on here. But that's a whole different topic. Like for me, I definitely think it's important to evaluate your goals, and evaluate like why you're wanting to make change, what those goals are, so that you can make your actions align with
Yes.
those values,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So, we've talked about like how strict you're willing to go, like certain sacrifices you're willing to make. Sometimes like there's like no sacrifices that really need to be made
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
It'll be small little gradual things like just swapping out a couple of food choices. Like another person that jumps to mind, Will was working with a guy in Cairns back when Will did nutrition for people. And this guy used to drink 1 liter to 2 liters of iced coffee a day.
Oh my God, I'd be
And
on the shitter constantly.
he was a big boy, a very big man. In 12 weeks, he lost 30 kilos.
Wow.
Yeah. And the first thing that Will asked him to do was to reduce the amount of iced coffee that he was drinking.
Yeah.
So he cut back to 1 liter of iced coffee a week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he would have a glass of it a day,
Aw,
essentially.
Yeah.
And then he started incorporating like going for walks,
Yeah.
and just moving, because he had quite a sedentary
Yep.
role. So that was the only thing that Will did, was like, we're just going to start really, really small.
Yep.
Instead of drinking 2 liters of iced coffee a day, you're going to
Dial it back.
dial it back a little bit. So you can still have it. I'm not saying stop, but that's where we're, kind of jumping around goals here. But yeah.
But I think too, like the good thing as well, like when I have a client in a similar scenario, I would say like, how do you feel about changing this or doing this? And if they're like, yep, sure, then you're like, sick, that's a good place to start.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. So like you said, like how motivated they are. This guy he's a very big man, about 160 kilos.
Yeah.
He wasn't able to walk around and move and live comfortably. And he was very much aware of, like, he was on a trajectory of death.
Yeah, for sure.
If he didn't make changes. He was in his mid-50s. We ended up actually moving in and living with him for a period of time as well. So he was someone that Will forged a very good long-term relationship with. And yeah, so anyways, it's kind of random
like that.
Random
That's
tangent
wholesome.
there. But yeah, so like
iced coffee bringing everyone together.
Essentially changed this man's life and helped us out as well in the process. But yeah, so we jumped ahead a little bit there.
I guess
where are we at?
We've got, I guess, so understanding, are they motivated to change, and like where this desire to change is coming from. Does it align with their values? Are they aware of the trade-offs? And then I guess what we've got, what stress do you feel you can and can't control right now? So this is maybe understanding, how can we control our controllables?
Yep. Yeah. Just having a bit of a look at stresses at the moment overall, because when a lot of people, when I ask them about stress, like, oh, do you have, everyone's like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. So much stress going on right now. We all do, right? It's our perceptions of what stress is that's going to revoke different reactions to it, and you learn from highly stressful situations how you reacted, things you like and didn't like about that process. So next time, if you are ever in that situation, you can respond
in a different way.
Yeah, you can manage the response a little bit better.
Yeah.
So one of the exercises that I really like to do, and I encourage a lot of people to do, is to write out all their stresses, and then circle things that they can control and things that they can't control. And not all stress is bad stress, right?
We need stress to make adaptations.
Yeah.
Jinx
undercover. But where were we? Fuck, I was going to say like no take backs. But yeah, so like stress could be dieting, stress could be training, stress could be bouts of fucking running around like a dickhead before and now being completely passed out. Like, you know, just the camera blowing up on us. Like there's a few different things that could be like small stress controllables. And then there could be really, really big things. Like, you know, I've got some family stuff going on at the moment with my brother, and his son. And that's like something that I don't
subconsciously just there.
Yeah, it's in the back of my mind. It isn't directly impacting me, but it is because, you know, natural big sister protective.
Yeah.
I want to do everything I can to help him, and I can't. And that's something that I can't control right now, but I have to acknowledge that it's actually there in the background.
Yeah.
And if you're not acknowledging certain stresses, then you can't set up management strategies or those sorts of things. So
and I guess from a nutrition perspective, when we are under a lot of stress, maybe we don't make great decisions when it comes to our food, and maybe it impacts our sleep, and then that has a cascading effect into everything else that we do.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it builds self-awareness. And as you go through the process of getting started with your nutrition, the more self-aware you are to how you react to certain situations, you can then start to have a little bit more of a logical perspective on naturally emotional sort of, you know, situations.
And I think to just like to round this out, I think having a lot of empathy towards yourself as well. So I know, like, I'll use myself as an example. When I'm stressed, caffeine is what I reach for.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people, food is something that mine's caffeine. So I
forget to eat.
So yeah, mine's caffeine. I'll turn on the kettle or I'll rip open a can of Monster and then I'll drink it and be like, why the fuck am I drinking this at like 3 p.m.?
Yeah.
What am I doing? And then that will impact my sleep. And then the next day I feel shit. And then it's just like, that's where it's
interesting that you turn to caffeine as well, because that's only going to elevate.
I know.
Blood pressure and heart rate, right?
It's me and then so I got to like be like, Jordan, like, it's okay. Like, put it down. You don't need this. Go for a walk. Like, get away from
that's
the caffeine.
Another thing, right? Is that like from understanding things you can and cannot control, you can then start to go, well, these things that I can control, what can I do to manage them? But also if something like an uncontrollable elevates me, what can I do that is going to bring me back down and is going to, you know, like put me back into a little bit of a rested state? Like it's okay to feel your feelings and get frustrated and pissed off and angry and have all those different things occur. It's okay to feel that way, but it's not okay to feel that way 24/7 and then have really reactive and self-sabotaging behaviors come in. So like for me, that's gardening. Like when I get into a really elevated state, I'll go and pull some weeds out for 15 minutes and I just get out of my head. Another thing could be like going and having a bath and just listening to some good music and stuff like that. So each person has their
own
for you,
thing.
it's going for a walk. Some people it's reading, listening to a podcast. Like
paint by numbers, like the coloring in. I've got some clients that do that.
Cool. So all those different things are different strategies that we can definitely do. Cool. So the next thing we've got here, and this is from like, this is a question I really like to ask as a coach. And I know you're like, fuck yeah, let's get into it.
Every inquiry call, I'm like, this is the question I would ask.
Yes, let's arm ourselves with this. So Bowser just farted. Well done, Bowser.
Must have been the apple core I gave him. He's side eye. He's like, yes.
A little tail wag. Oh, that's a nose stinger.
Nose stinger.
2 sniffs each, don't be greedy.
Oh.
If you tried things in the past, why did those past trials not suit you? So ask yourself that question now. Like, was it that maybe it was the right tools and the right information. It was just the wrong time. You weren't willing to make those changes. Was it that the person that was giving you the advice you just didn't respect and trust, though it might have been the right advice and you know what you need to do, you just didn't have a good connection with that person? Like fuck, I know, like Will tell me to do things sometimes. I'm like, fuck you, I'm not going to listen to you. It's your husband.
Yeah.
But if it's like your coach and they say the same thing, you're like, oh my God, you're a genius. Like,
yeah.
I trust and not that I don't like adore, you know.
No. It's the same.
But it's that same thing.
Yeah.
So there's that, but there's the other side of it is where there are just certain things that you're like, I just recognize that this doesn't work for me. This different tool or strategy is just not accommodating to my lifestyle. Like, is there something that you can think of at the moment that you've either used with clients in the past or clients have come to you and answered this question and said, this doesn't work for me?
I've had like inquiry calls with people where they've said like, I don't want to track my macros. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, there are so many other things we can do.
100%.
So I like to ask them then after that question, like, is there a particular method that you want to work on or try or learn? And maybe someone says, I want to start off with the meal plan and use it as a guide to start off with. And then obviously we don't have to then hammer home that tool for like the whole duration of our coaching. We might then find
it's
that
a starting place.
Yeah, maybe, all right, I'm sick of this. Like, let's try something else. And we might use a blend of different things. But, you know, sometimes when I do ask that question for people, you can then kind of ascertain whether they've got that all or nothing mindset. Because a lot of time the things that didn't work was when they're like, oh, I was really good for a few weeks and then I kind of just fell back into my old habits. So then you're like, okay, so
100%. I know a lot of people, like in the past when I've gone down the whole I don't want to track my calories or anything like that. I really want to take an intuitive eating approach. And I fully endorse that. Like, I don't remember the last time I tracked calories or followed a meal plan. But obviously I've been doing this for a long time that I understand.
You can make informed decisions around your food.
100%.
And not everyone can do that.
But it's also because people actually haven't had exposure to
those
tracking.
Yeah.
And they actually don't know what is in the food that they're eating. They don't know roughly, like, you know, portion sizes. They don't know the calorie allotment for certain things. They don't know fattier cuts of meat to leaner cuts of meat. Like, they actually just don't know that.
Don't know what you don't know.
100%. And that's where tracking is a really useful tool in the pathway of intuitive eating. Like, a lot of people that I know teach informed eating, intuitive eating, whatever you want to do, it stems from this person having nutrition literacy.
How do you make an informed decision if you don't know?
Exactly.
But no, I agree. And like,
it's not something that you use all the time.
No. But I think too, like, it's really hard for people to maybe like know all these things because, like, my dad, for instance, when I was back in Melbourne, you know, he'd have his almonds and he's like, oh, but they're a great source of protein.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
so is peanut butter.
Not really. And I was trying to explain, and then he pulls up bodybuilding.com and shows me a comment. And again, you know, no one's going to listen to their family members, but like, I guess too, like, people don't know what's right or what's wrong because there's so much information available.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, so jumping back to it, like, obviously there's different methods, tools. It's just about knowing the right time, the right place. This person that may have started with you and said, I don't want to track calories, may be in a position now 6 to 12 months later where they're wanting to take something super seriously, like a prep for 8 weeks and go hard on it. And that's where tracking and that sort of stuff could be a useful tool at the right time. We're not going to pull out a screwdriver when we need a hammer.
Exactly. Or maybe that person, I know they did, but like, has tracked in the past and they've got that knowledge. So maybe they just want to use it in a different way without having to rely on that.
Absolutely. But I think it's also just about recognizing that your past experiences or things that you've tried in the past clearly haven't necessarily worked because you're still here.
You're back there. Yeah.
You're still here. So like you said, it could be that it was just the wrong tool at the wrong time, or the right tool at the wrong time, or, you know what I mean? There's just it's positive to reflect back on bad experiences and good experiences and utilize that to create a framework for getting started and then being flexible enough to be able to re-implement some of those tools down the track if and when they're needed.
Yeah. And I guess just to kind of finish that off as well, like, because something's worked in the past, it may not be the right time to then use that again.
Exactly.
So if something you thought would work doesn't work, don't beat yourself up. Be like, okay, maybe I should change direction for a little bit.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
All right. So jumping ahead here, and what we did touch on this a little bit earlier, obviously, but like goals, why are these goals important to you, right? So we talked about, some people want to lose 5 kilos, and that's totally fine to lose 5 kilos. Why is that number important to you? If you only lose 3 kilos, but you look good, feel good, and you're stronger, is that,
Are you happy with
are
that?
you happy with that? Are you going to be disappointed that you don't hit 5 kilos? So having some of the, like, challenging someone's goals is a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. Like challenging, why are these things important to you? I don't see any issue with that. I do see an issue, as I mentioned earlier, where someone's goals are being completely disregarded.
Yeah.
Like, again, there could be problematic issues as to why there was like, this is a really important goal to me, and that's why you need to challenge it and pick it apart and all those sorts of things. But I definitely think it's still important.
I do that. I like understanding too, like, why is this goal important to you? Because then you get to understand your client too, like, maybe on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And that's when maybe when you start to question why that goal is important, maybe you learn a little bit about themselves, and then you're like, oh, okay, like maybe I can use this in my coaching to kind of like help you with this process.
Absolutely. And that's exactly like what we've got here as being outcome based goals rather than focusing on the process. Like, when you get there, then what? So
do
like,
you just stop, or
when
then
you
you're gonna have to keep going?
when you lose that 5 kilos, for example, then what?
Yeah. And I actually had this conversation with someone the other day, because it's kind of like, I think there's like a stat. It's like 80% of people put back on the weight or more within like 36 weeks of, say if it's a weight loss goal. Because maybe like, because building habits takes like up to 254 days, apparently, according to Harvard. I don't know if that's real. Don't cite me, anyone. But like, maybe they weren't practicing that habit for long enough, and then it never really became, or maybe it didn't really align with.
Maybe they was just so focused on the outcome they didn't recognize the habit formations that were actually getting them to that outcome.
Yeah, and then again, like on our notes, it says like the process. You got to enjoy the process, because if you get to that numerical goal and you're like, fuck, like I feel miserable, like I'm doing, I don't know, 20,000 steps a day or whatever it is to like maintain this, or I'm training like 4 times when I really can't really commit to that. Like,
like I mentioned in this little reel thing that I uploaded the other day, like, we are helping people create long-term sustainable change. So there are certain, like, and it's okay to kind of push an extreme for a period of time. Like, if you have a competition, a photo shoot, a bodybuilding comp, whatever, like, you can push an extreme, and that is totally okay. But hopefully throughout that process, there are things that you are learning about yourself, or things that you are learning about the environment that you've created, the routines, the habits, the food choices that you're like, I really enjoy some of this stuff and I want to continue to re-implement that in a long-term fashion, right? Like, having the extreme of like an end date and a competition, working really hard, being really strict for 8 to 12, 16 weeks, whatever it is, but knowing that at the end of that, it's not nothing again. Like, you go all, and it's okay to be all, but it's not nothing. And the analogy that I like to use is the dimming knob, right? So you can be hyperfixated, and that's totally fine, but it's just about knowing when you can dial back and what certain things to dial back on. And hopefully throughout that process, you've learned
how to
do that, what you like and what you want to continue doing, and what you think I can just pull back on a little bit. Like you said, training 4 times a week may not be something everyone wants to do, and 3 or 2 times is fine.
Yeah, it could be like maybe you meal prepped all your lunches and your breakfasts for like a few weeks, and now
you're eating out of a Tupperware container with your family.
Yeah, and maybe now you know what ingredients to buy, you know how to set up your food environment that's going to help you with maintaining where you're at. But you're not going to eat out of Tupperware like every day.
Like, an example is one of my clients, Jake. He's lost 10 kilos since September. So in roughly 12 weeks. And over that timeline, we have had a couple of little like diet breaks for social events, birthdays, things like that. So he's gone from 97 kilos down to like 86 and a half. Fantastic weight loss. the calories never reduced any lower than the initial set drop that we had. And he enjoyed the process. Like, he's like, I was highly motivated. A lot of the things that we have done, like we tripled his fruit intake, because he was so poor with his fruit uptake before, that it was essentially like one piece of fruit to like 3 or 4 pieces of like different types of fruit now. And he's like, I really love fresh fruit, and it's a good time of the year.
It's
and he's
summer,
like,
it's like delicious, it's cold,
it's fresh, it's just good produce at the moment. And so for him, he's like, fuck yeah, I want to keep doing this, and the conditioning stuff he's been doing, I want to keep doing that because it makes me feel really good. So yeah, anyways, let's move into the next bit here. So yeah, he was focusing at the end of the day, focusing on the process, not on the end outcome. He didn't care how much weight he lost. He didn't actually set a number. He was just like, oh, I want to
go as hard as far in this time frame as possible.
This is the timeline that I have. What do you think we can do? And I was like, hey, if we get down to like 90, that's fucking awesome.
That's like Pierce. Shout out Pierce. I know he was probably listening, so I thought
he's lost a lot of weight too, right?
He's lost over like 10 kilos.
Yeah, crazy.
And we went back to maintenance a few weeks ago, and he's doing a beautiful job at maintaining because he feels great, so obviously he wants to keep that feeling up. And he now recognizes that he can add in a little bit more fun, but maintenance is this place where we practice like flexibility and still maintaining like those core foundations that we've set.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so the next question that I want people to arm themselves with is, what else could you ask for?
Could you ask for help? So this was like the support network.
Yes. Yeah. What else could you ask for help? Who else could you ask for help to support in achieving this? So your support network, your environment, is that set up for success? So whether you hire a coach or not, do you have a training partner that you could do this with? Do you have a wife or a family member or a housemate or someone like that you could even do it with, or just express, hey, this is
what I'm doing,
and can you support me through this process, rather than question and judge me?
Yeah, because I think a lot of the times too, a lot of people I coach, they feel like they don't like voicing their needs, so they feel bad. Like, so say if they're focusing on cleaning up their nutritional habits, like, oh, but I've got friends that bring me treats and gifts, and like, well, do tell them, hey, like, I'm trying to knuckle down on this. Maybe instead of this, maybe we can make food together. Like, I think being firm and setting your boundaries and communicating to people around you and having an environment that's supporting you is really, 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 really important.
100%. Yeah. I think, like, what's the old saying? Like, you are, like some of your 5 closest friends or something like that. You are a result of like the 5 closest people around you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think that like if you can express this to different people, work colleagues, family, do it with
work
different
colleagues
people.
is a big one.
Yeah. I actually have, shout out to my client Laura over in the UK. Like, she's gone out and bought like little protein snacks for our workplace, rather than just having like chocolates and biscuits, because she works in corporate. So I know you come from that corporate background, how easy it is to have like cakes and all
Every
those
day
treats and stuff like that in the office
cookies
kitchen.
in the tea room and donuts and emails going around being like, oh, in the tea room there's this. And then the moment you pull out your Tupperware, everyone's like, what's that? Are you dieting?
Yeah.
Like, fuck off. Get off my dick. You
don't need to lose weight.
Oh,
yes.
God.
Yeah. But no, so shout out to her, like, trying to change a bit of a culture in her environment
that's
as
huge.
well. Like, that's a really
like
big step. But yeah, then the last question that we have here, which I think will help give people a lot of insight as to what they can do initially to make change. Right. So we've gone over like, why do you want to make change? How motivated are you? What stresses do you have going on? What worked in the past? What are your goals? Why are those goals important to you? Challenging those goals, talking about your environment and your success. And then the last ones that we have here is, what are the recent things you've started doing that made you feel good, and how can we make this enjoyable? So I think it's really important to look over like, hey, I want to make a change in my lifestyle, in my diet, in whatever, in my performance. And what have you started doing at the moment like you've made the decision that you want to make change, but naturally before you make that decision, there are some things that people actually just start to change in their day-to-day life
Just
anyways that's going to support that.
kickstart that.
Yeah, exactly. So what are some of the things that you've started doing?
Me.
I feel like you're already pretty solid with it, but like,
I was like, I want to be
yeah.
like, I'm actually got my shit sorted.
Yeah. I haven't at the moment. Since coming back from holidays, I definitely haven't.
No, I feel like you were away for so long, so I feel like it takes like equally amount of time plus more to get back into the routine.
Yeah.
Like, I actually had this conversation with a client yesterday. It's like, you're away for a few weeks. 1 week being back at home isn't gonna then like,
Yeah.
reset everything.
I think the other thing for me is that like I didn't come back feeling uncomfortable in how I looked. I didn't feel like I needed to make any changes because I felt like I enjoyed myself. I had a good time whilst I was away in America, and then coming back, like I was actually excited to keep in Freedom Foods and have good foods in there.
Yeah.
So I didn't come back feeling like wanting to make changes or do anything. But
I think like if I was to think about it, like I know sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep is that constant thing for me, and like being disciplined and going to bed at 8 o'clock. Don't laugh, people. At 8 o'clock, I know, because then I get at least 7 hours when I'm up at like 4.
Yeah.
And I know like if I kind of let that slide and then consistently, then I just like feel bad. So I know I feel really good when I do that.
Yeah. See, for me, and this is like starting to come into the next things that we have written down here as well, is for me, it's like I instantly start to feel better when I start eating more fruits and vegetables. Like my gut's less. Like I just have a bit of a sensitive tummy, my poor tum-tum. And so when I do naturally just start to get more fruits and vegetables, I don't actually change the volume of anything else on my plate though. Like I don't have like more or less carbs or more or less protein. I just have more fruits and vegetables in my day and I feel better. Like my gut doesn't feel as like uncomfortable. And then from there, when I start to feel better, then I'm starting to like, oh, okay, maybe I can pull back on having this much mayo in my wrap or this much oil in my cooking or, this much pasta in my diet, like those sorts of things. Like you just start to like pull back on other things when depending on what you want to do.
Thing is, But I think that like the point of it though that we both touched on is like when you feel good, you then I say like feel good, do good, perform good. Like you just everything else just like is easier in life.
Yeah. You're less reactive to certain situations when you
handle more.
when going back to the stress, like when you're more stressed, like and you feel okay, like you can just manage that stress a little bit better and differently. Like you're just not so elevated by something that does trigger you.
Yeah.
One from either past experiences and just learning to manage them better, but also just because you feel a little bit better. So think about some of the things that you've done recently that have made you feel really good and then continue to implement them. Or if you're in a position at the moment where you feel a bit like meh and gross and you like want to like the bloat kind of thing or whatever, think about a time that you were feeling really, really good.
Yeah.
And what were you doing then?
I like that because that's a question that you ask and I'm like, oh, I love that. I use that now.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's one of those things like depending obviously on how rigid and strict you were, but like just think about a time when you're like, I felt pretty relaxed here. I didn't feel like I was implementing large amounts of rigidity or control on everything. So like when I ask a lot of my clients that question, they're like, oh, I really loved going for my morning walks.
Yes.
Like I just felt really good. I woke up, I started the day, then I was getting ready for work and I felt a lot calmer because I'd kind of had that like mental clarity
had
thing.
a moment of solitude to yourself.
And then from there, like, their food decisions were, so it's just like picking a multitude of different, the doors going down. Picking
I
a
was
multitude
like, what is that noise?
Bowers is freaking out. Picking apart like when you were in a really relaxed, calm, feel good, energized, training was going well, what were you doing in that time? Cool. So let's jump into so after we've gone through all those different questions, we then start to realize that there may be certain skills that this person needs.
Wants to acquire.
Yes, because they don't have it. So
Yeah.
let's pick apart what some of those things are.
So like, understanding, because I've got a client basically, and every week we like focus on maybe a different cuisine or food, and we're slowly building up his like meal library.
Yeah.
So because I'm
Cooking
like,
skills.
yeah, because I'm like, one day I'm not going to be here, and I want you to be able to like put things together that's going to support your health.
Yeah. 100%.
So he came from a background of like a coach being just meal plan, tell me what to eat and I'll eat it, with no kind of understanding of why those meals were being put together.
But he probably at that point didn't want to know.
Maybe
right?
not, yeah. But now I think he's like, yeah, actually, like,
I want to understand this. For sure.
talking about the elements in each dish and why they're there and what we can swap them around with. So then you're starting to learn about these are different types of carbs, these are different veggies. Like,
100%. So learning to cook and essentially learning to track, like learning to absolutely observe what you're consuming, learning to structure different plans and meals and things like that. So there's like meal timing that kind of comes into that. And then there's other things that we've got here, like starting on little simple metrics that you can start to monitor. So things like your hydration, sleep, protein, types of fruits and vegetables, getting different types of protein that you can get in. Another thing that I think a lot of people should actually start to, and we haven't got it noted down there, but is like types of fat as well. Like a lot of people are going on a lot of like saturated fats and stuff like that to consume their fat intake, and the impacts that could have on like cholesterol or blood pressure and stuff like that.
Even body composition too. Like I know like the health stuff's more important than that.
For
But like
sure.
if your diet is solely based on a certain type of fat, like your composition in comparison to someone who chooses, you know, unsaturated
to diversify
sources.
that.
Yeah.
Not saying that all saturated fats are bad.
No. Like obviously there's some in dairy and you need your dairy for your calcium. So,
proteins and stuff.
We're not fucking shitting on them. But like if you literally just ate saturated fats and trans fats and you neglected your omega 3s and all of that, like that's a problem.
So I think it's just understanding what each of those different things are, and then the more you learn those skill sets, the more that you can modify your food consumption in accordance to some of those things.
And
like if you went and had
choices.
if you went and had a blood test and it came back as like elevated cholesterol or triglycerides were high and those sorts of things, it's like, what are some of the things that I can do that are going to help lower these things? And
bring them back to balance.
For sure. Cool. So build trust and confidence so they feel empowered to continue with their newfound
habits and behaviors.
100%.
Yes.
So the next point that we have here is once we have the capability to change and know what we need to do, we can continue to weave in some education. We've talked about that. And then someone with a little bit more knowledge wanting to get serious. What are the last couple of points here that we've got to help this person just to round this out? Because a lot of it, like I feel like all those questions were relevant to total newbies, but also people that are like solid athletes, you know, like they just don't have that moment of reflection and ask those questions.
Exactly.
But what are some of the points that we've got written down here for someone that is a little bit more knowledgeable?
Cool.
Someone like yourself, right? Like you're coming on board and you're wanting to take things a little bit more seriously.
So I guess, say if I had a call with someone from like a coaching perspective, I always ask like, tell me about a day in the life of you, or a week or whatever. And I would try understand from that. You would understand like, you know, their eating habits, their behaviors when it comes to like their sleep and their jobs, you know, all of that. So you're kind of getting a nice little overview of like, okay,
life in the shoes of Jordan.
Yeah, holistically.
Get ready with me.
Fuck. I can't. I want to do like a mock, you know what I mean? But I don't want to come across as like a dickhead.
No,
but
do
like,
it.
They jump and then they're like wearing their stupid outfit that like they couldn't
naked
train
in the background.
Yeah, like obviously like they wear this like nice top. I'm like, I'd pop a titty if I wore that.
Yeah,
and whatever. Anyway, I'm just like old.
They pull their pants up so you can see the type of underwear that they're wearing.
And then when they film their RDLs, the phone's under their fucking cooch.
Oh, I haven't seen those ones. I don't know who you follow. But yeah, so getting an insight as to what this person's day looks like so that we can actually accommodate something that's a little bit more unique to them.
Yeah, or maybe understand, okay, like maybe this is a gap or something that we need to address. But obviously I wouldn't jump in and be like, you kind of like getting ideas.
I think it's important sometimes to ask them, like, what do you think you could do differently in this daily routine? Like, is there something that you've tried that you like that you want to re-implement, or is there something that you think you can fill and
Yep.
maybe then you ask me the question of like, rather than just constantly being like, I would do this here and I would do
I
that
always
there.
ask.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think you could be
Yep.
doing in it across this day right now to
Yeah.
make it a little bit better?
Yeah. And more often than not, that person tells you what you've probably got in the back of your head.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, I had this conversation with a girl that I onboarded a few weeks ago now. And she ran me through her routine and blah 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 blah. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I was like, well, what do you think needs to change first? And she's like, my post training meal. She's like, I'm like, I've come back from the gym in the morning and I'm rushing to work and I know I don't really get a solid meal in like once I start work, and she might not eat until lunchtime, and then she's training fasted really, and so then we can get into
the stem on that comes from that potentially binging later in the day or whatever.
Yeah. So then we're like, okay, like let's work on your meal timing and finding ideas that work for you that you can take to the gym and have on the go or eat at work.
I think another important thing to note here is that the client has given you the answer themselves. So they're a little bit more inclined to follow something that they are excited by, you know what I mean? That's something that they feel like they've suggested and had input on, rather than something that like, okay, it's our jobs to help guide these people through it if they purely like just don't know what to do and where to start. But a lot of people do.
Yeah, they do. And it's like, it's not being a lazy coach. It's kind of like chilling out, empowering your clients,
building independence.
Yeah. And then, we're here to bounce off or say, oh, maybe we can, if they
stop
ask
focusing on 5 things and focus on 2.
Yeah,
for sure. Okay, so from there, other things that we can start to assess is phasing their nutrition around their training and performance goals as well. So for a lot of people getting started, it's just a matter of implementing good simple routines and habits and food choices and blah blah blah, and then as you get a little bit more serious, you can then start to really pick apart like, all right, this is a good time to be doing some dieting, and over this period we want to dedicate a good amount of time to putting weight on, and this period we want to be doing that. Like, you can really start to build out a little bit more of a structure of their yearly calendar or whatever.
So like maybe for a beginner it's more about like what's going to make you be a healthier, happier human, and then this is like what's going to make you be a better athlete.
For sure. I definitely think that that's something, I mean, like, it's something you can do with like general population as well anyways, but general population aren't generally competing either, right?
No,
so
exactly.
Phasing different nutrition cycles around their training and performance goals is definitely something that's important. So another thing we've got here is like consistency, not being on top of things all the times and then things snowballing.
Yeah. So maybe like, I guess a big important thing for me is like not assuming, because someone's been on top of something in the past that they're always on top of everything all at once. Like that's like juggling analogy. Like, you might drop a ball and then us as a coach is like helping that person identify, oh, okay, maybe we need to like rejig our focus back on this while we're also doing, put these maybe on the back burner, shine a light on this. All right, now we got to go back to this. And because no one has their shit 100% all together across all avenues all the time.
For sure. And I think it's one of those things that it's important to note, like the, as we mentioned at the start of this, like the complacency factor as well. Like, it's okay to let things kind of drop off. So long as it's not solely because you're being lazy,
or
you know what I mean?
Like a large,
So it's like, it's okay for things not to be 100% consistent all the time, and for there to be like periods of time where some of these things become lower priority and other things are higher priority stuff. So, but it's about maintaining like a base level of consistency more often than not, and not allowing one dropped ball to then become 3, 2, 3, and then it's, as you said, the snowballing effect there. Okay, so the biggest weaknesses that people don't follow.
Oh, this was one that I think we were talking about last week, and this is something that you've seen come up maybe quite a bit in your time coaching.
Yeah, for sure. It's, for me, it's a like a real pet peeve. I like to, like, a lot of these athletes that are coming on board, they know exactly what they need to be doing, right?
Most time people know.
100%. And it goes back to that first question of like, what do you feel like you could be doing differently and better? Giving them the like, oh, I think I can be doing this, and then also interweaving in these things. But the 2 core ones that always come up and really, I just feel like I'm constantly harping on about, is micronutrients, so fruits, vegetables, getting those in consistently, getting a diverse in. So like the diverse amount, and then the density of it as well. So just getting in enough.
Yeah.
And then we've got sleep here as well is another really big one, because obviously when people don't have solid sleep routines and sleep cycles, pre-wake up, like before going to bed and upon wake up, like all those little things like that ties into sleep for me.
Yeah.
So if someone has really shitty sleep, like pre-sleep habits, and then if someone has really shitty like morning routines, those tie into sleep as an overarching sort of thing that I think needs to be addressed. And as soon as you nail those two, it has a flow-on effect to everything else.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think too, when people don't have solid morning routines, don't have solid afternoon routines, they also then don't have solid micronutrient intake.
Yes.
Because a lot of the time maybe they don't have time to make their breakfast and have their fruit and, you know, or have time to like make their lunches or whatever it may be the night before. And then it all kind of slips and falls into a bit of a heap.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Okay, so the last two things that we have here as well, which is obviously when we look at like Eric Helm's pyramid, is meal timing. So strategic meal timing of macronutrients. That's definitely something that we can incorporate for more serious, dedicated people with performance-based goals, making sure that they're emphasizing their, you know, pre and post workouts or what they're eating at certain times across the day to maximize their in gym sessions and all that sort of stuff. So we can then start to pick that apart. And then also supplements.
Yep. So supplements and timing
and dosing of those.
Yeah. And more so like sports ones, not like your fish oil, like looking at it like
health subs definitely come in. It all comes into it.
Yeah. But I guess what I was thinking was like timing your caffeine around your training or whatever. Or whatever you're taking.
Yeah, your creatine and your
it just
citrulline and all that sort
it just
of stuff.
requires a lot more like planning.
And I think once you have a routine around that, like going back to just habits and routines, when you have a good routine, so step on your crotch. I feel like you have a pretty like Will is very much like he'll before going to the gym, he has his little bag of pre-workout, creatine, what else does he put in it? Taurine and a magnesium mix. And he just makes this shake and just grabs like all those in a little container. He just gets a teaspoon, pours everything in, shakes it up, and he's good to go out the door. Like it's just part of his little routine that he has. So and that's just like the sports component side of it. Obviously, each morning when he wakes up, like Will being type 1 diabetic, has all of his insulin and stuff like that he's doing. At that point, he'll take his other health subs that he needs to be consuming across that time as well. Because he's got his little health cabinet, goes over, gets out what he needs, and so it's just part of the routine that he's created. So cool. Well, I hope that's given people some insight on what you can be doing to get started with your nutrition. Obviously, we haven't talked about...
He's licking my leg. It's really ticklish.
I got you now, girl.
Oh, yuck.
He said, I'll get you in the face soon. But yeah, so hopefully that's given people a little bit of an insight as to what they can do from a larger holistic avenue. We obviously haven't talked about calories and macros or any of that sort of stuff. So I'm going to put out a post later today. Just talking about setting up your calories and rate of gain and loss that you want to be seeing from that perspective. Ghetto Bowser. So if you are listening to this now and you're like, cool, I have a good idea as to what I can reflect on and some questions I can be asking myself. Now I need to know where to start in terms of the numbers,
the building blocks, I guess, around it. The meat.
Go to that post on my account, and I'll collab with Jordan if she accepts my invite.
I'll accept it.
Oh yay, friend.
Boss wanker.
So go to that post, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight to what you can be doing based on what your goals are.
Cool. And do you reckon we'll do another episode more so on that later, or we'll talk about bulking and stuff instead?
We'll interweave all that sort of. I think if we do a big bulking episode, ow, he bit me.
Oh.
Hopefully that answers the question.
A big bulking
calories.
episode.
Yes. Cool. All right.
Done.
Adios, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. Be sure to jump on our website to find details on everything mentioned in the podcast today. plus information on our coaching, mentoring, and gyms based in the Gold Coast and Townsville. Make sure you follow us on our Instagram for any updates on what we are currently doing, and we'll see you all in the next episode.